Yet this book is also are the writings of Dr. Amadeus Arkham. They serve as a chronicle of this infamous place that bears my name, Arkham Asylum. Yet this book is also other things. It is my confession. It holds secrets that I will take with me to my grave. It is also a warning about the terrible evil I have unleashed upon the world, and a plea that you, the reader, stop it before it's too late. And so what we do is we jump back to 1945, where Amadeus Arkham is met by a man. Now, this guy shows up here and he asks the question, "Good day, Dr. Arkham. I'm not too early, am I?" And of course, Amadeus says it's fine. The faster we complete this process, the better. And where the question's asked, "Are you not reconsidering?" Amadeus says, "No, it's time. And I do believe the price reflects that and how determined I am to get a deal done." So seemingly, he's selling Arkham Asylum for pretty cheap. And so he says, "If you'll just follow me, I will take you for a tour of the grounds." And this guy asked the question. He says, "I couldn't help but notice this woman. If you don't mind me asking, who is she?" And Amadeus says, "That would be my mother. In some ways, it can be said, this place began with her." And so in turn, he starts to tell this story. And he says, "My father fought for the Union. My first memories are of my mother standing watch at our front window awaiting his return. Lee had surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, and my father was long past due. The waiting had taken its toll on my mother. It had taken its toll on me. But this night would be different. This night, the dark silhouette of a Union soldier marched up our walk. It was him," my mother exclaimed. "After all this time, my father was home." Or so we thought. We quickly realized the soldier at the door was not my father. The letter he handed my mother would explain everything. And so it did. It came from the newly installed President Johnson, informing us that father had been killed at the Battle of Palmito Ranch. Ironically, a battle fought after Lee's surrender, meaning my father died in a pointless battle against the Confederacy. It was all too much for my mother to take. The soldier, to his credit, tried to console her, but she had other ideas. As the soldier's blood started to pool at our doorstep, my mother looked over the faces of my siblings and proceeded to end them, one by one. But when she came to me, she paused and turned the gun on herself instead. Why she chose to spare me that day, I will never know. But the incident would shape my life. From when I first arrived at the Elliott Gotham City Orphanage as a scared little boy, to the day I emerged from its doors, a confident young man with nothing more than the clothes on my back and a dream to help people like my mother, a dream to build a place where people such as her could get the care they needed, where the best science of the day would be applied to treat the mind's afflictions, so the tragedy that befell me could be prevented, a place I could call Arkham Asylum. With money given to me by the Elliott Family Foundation, I would purchase the land where my dream would come to fruition. Cheap land with a past of its own, granted, due to being where the British kept colonial prisoners of war during the Revolution, where there was much abuse and loss of life, a place other Gothamites said was haunted from the start, soaked in blood and madness. Still, none of that mattered to me, not as long as some good could come out of it. In the beginning, Arkham was everything I wanted it to be, a good facility with a full staff of like-minded individuals getting patients the help they so desperately needed, even those patients who, with Gotham being Gotham, were a bit more in need, shall we say. My mother would be proud, I believed. That said, Arkham was not without its issues in those initial years. One issue in particular, a man so vile and heinous, I will not even utter his name. Let's call him Jack Doe for the purpose of this journal. By the time he was sent to us, Jack had murdered multiple people, men, women, children, and soon after his arrival, he killed two nurses and disemboweled another prisoner. He took glee in killing. He was always laughing, a horrible grin on his face. He was the type of inmate that threatened the very existence of Arkham, and so he became the patient I was most determined to help. And so that's when you jump back to Arkham and this man, because this man asked the question, then tell me why. Why has Arkham so clearly fallen on such hard times? And that's where Amadeus says fewer and fewer patients. For one thing, fancier and more modern facilities sponsored by the Lazarus Corporation in Metropolis and elsewhere for another. The truth is, this place would have had to close years ago if not for the kindness of benefactors such as yourself. And that's what this guy just says. Okay, so like, you've been doing your homework. I like my donations to be anonymous. And Amadeus just says, look, but I'm not going to hand this institution over to someone I know nothing about. So yes, I did my research and I appreciate your generosity. Mental health is clearly important to you. And that's what this guy just says, it is. I have seen up close the suffering caused by conditions of the mind, and I feel it's our duty to find cures so that younger generations never have to contend with them. Our children deserve a better future. Do you have children, doctor? And that's where he kind of freezes for a moment, almost like this question that he didn't necessarily expect. And he ponders, and he's like, children? I never really had any children. And so you jump back to 1885, and he says, it was raining the night he arrived, covered in blood, so much blood, even the rain couldn't wash it away. How did he get that way? Whose blood was it? The boy claimed that he did not know, but it was clear he had suffered greatly in life. An orphan raised on the streets. He was near death when I found him. Being an orphan myself, I took pity on the lad. I took him in, and eventually, in time, I took him under my wing. He was bright and learned quickly. More than anything, the boy was fascinated by my work and would tour the halls of Arkham with me. Perhaps it was growing among
bullshit.
Tu tiempo vale más allá afuera. Caza monstruos temibles. Consigue botines raros.
absolute joke. Result in instant soon became when I found him. Being an orphan myself, I took pity on the lad. I took him in, and eventually, in time, I took him under my wing. He was bright and learned quickly. More than anything, the boy was fascinated by my work and would tour the halls of Arkham with me. Perhaps it was growing among the suffering masses of Gotham, but his fascination soon became a passion. He believed in the good of this place and in me. I dare say, with no heir of my own, I came to think of him as my own son, someone who would carry on my name and my work. Tomorrow is a new page, father, the boy would say. No matter how bad things seemed at the asylum, a private phrase to buoy my spirits. He was ever the optimist, even when he met Jack Doe. Jack was being punished for brutalizing yet another nurse. He taunted the boy, tried to get under his skin, ever a cruel joker, but still, the boy remained undeterred. Were the likes of Jack beyond our help? I confess, I had started to wonder, especially when Jack escaped his cell 2 days later, when he held the boy hostage. I did everything I could to talk Jack down. Thankfully, while Jack was cunning, he was not stupid. He knew killing the boy would result in instant death. I was just happy to get the boy back. Even as I hugged him, I knew the light in him had only been strengthened. And so again, continuing this walk among the grounds, the man just says, you still do get patients, I see. And Amadeus just says, few and far between, and with a small staff to help me at this point, but yes, we do. And so the man says, I must give you credit, Dr. Arkham. Through all the ups and downs of this place, you still managed to keep things afloat, even after the most infamous incident of all. And Amadeus initially pretends like he doesn't know what this guy is talking about, but this guy says, "Of course you do, doctor. As you have done your homework on me, so too have I done mine on you and this facility. So please, doctor, let's not continue to insult my intelligence and discuss the true reason this institution's reputation has suffered for decades. Tell me about the breakout." And so you jump to 1886, and Amadeus says it was all due to a damned careless orderly. "I had warned the fool time and time again. Whatever you do not get too close to the inmates. His keys were taken. His throat was slashed from ear to ear with a sharpened toothbrush, and he was but the first. He released a number of his fellow inmates, and they made their way down to the furnace room, deciding against confronting the armed guards at the front doors. Whatever the case, they quietly worked through the night, dug out a tunnel from behind the furnace, and just like that, they were gone. Waking the next day to this nightmare, I knew that Jack had done it. I could almost hear him laughing. The man who loved nothing more than to torch the world. It was a revelation that made my heart stop because I knew, and I knew Jack. I knew who he would target before making his escape. My son was lost to me forever. Tomorrow is a new page. That phrase of his came back to me over and over, but his story was over. And he says, "I never forgave myself for the breakout and for what happened as a result. To cope, I converted an old storeroom and created this, a record of my own shame." And he says the breakout was hidden from the papers to prevent panic. Sick people under Jack's tutelage twisted towards crime. There were robberies, murders. Eventually, all were brought back to this place. All except him. The man I refer to as Jack Doe. The man I have come to believe would become the world's most notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper. A man who might be more than human, but evil itself. A smiling demon, a hellish jokester. He says the timeline fits, the MO, all of it. And that's where the man just says, "Yes, doctor, I'm well aware of your works on the subject. Speaking of which, the furnace room. I would like to see it." And so as they make their way down there, Amadeus says, nearly 60 years ago now, and I haven't been down here since. If I'm being honest about it, I just couldn't face it. And so that's where the man asks, right? This wall, where it's re-bricked, this is where they escaped from, correct? And Amadeus says yes. And so then the man points in a different direction, and he says, "Then why is this wall re-bricked as well?" And that's where Amadeus kind of looks around, right? In his old age, he's forgotten a lot. And so he's actually being honest here when he says, "Having not been down here in ages, as I've said, it's not something I would have noticed before." And so the man just kind of wonders and says, "Have you ever wondered what else you never noticed, doctor?" And that is where the whole story shifts, because the man leans into Amadeus and he says, "He leaned in and whispered something to me then, something that stopped me cold. But before I could respond, the man just says, 'You don't have to see me out, doctor. I love this place.'" And so Amadeus just says, "That night I could not sleep. I must have heard him wrong, my buyer, but part of me knew I had not. And so I woke and wrote these words, this desperate cry to anyone who might hear it. I shall put this journal in the post as soon as I am done. But before I do that, I will go down into the dark one more time to prove what I already know. I shall remove the bricks and find what I know to be there, the horrible